What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, January 1st, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, Happy New Year. We're recording about 6 o'clock on New Year's Eve. I have my trophy in the background because I only get to have it for like another, 5.5 hours until tonight's game wraps up because I lost week one of the round of the playoffs. So it's a sad day. So the CFFL trophy is in the background of our recording, and it's only going to be in my household for a couple more hours at least.
Yeah, if I end up winning the toilet bowl, which I am on the way to, but it's not clinched yet, we'll see what happens. But if I end up winning it, I don't know if I'll haven't decided if I'm going to get a trophy or anything for it because it's something. It's not that exciting. We do get the first overall pick, which would be great. I do like picking back-to-back, and it's a keeper league, so having number one overall, I know some people don't really like it because you don't get to pick for a really long time, but having a keeper league, so hopefully starting with two pretty good players and then getting the first pick overall, nice little way to bring my pretty awful season to an end. So mildly excited, at least for next year.
Yeah, I'm absolutely annihilating Texas John, who was on the show for one of our draft episodes. But yeah, he's getting his poop pushed back up his butt versus me. I'm up by 100 points on him right now. I don't really want to go into details, but if CMC and Walker didn't go off in the first round of the playoffs, I would be sitting here with this trophy that would be sitting here for another 365 days, but I won't dwell on it. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Like we said, this is a New Year's Eve / New Year's Day episode, so we wanted to thank everyone who made this the best year yet of this podcast. We are entering year 3 soon in April. We went over that whole discussion last Friday trying to figure it out. Went through 4 calendar years, and we'll be entering our 3rd year of covering these teams. And the responses we've gotten are incredible. Our numbers continue to grow year in and year out, nearly doubling each year we've been doing this. That's why you are seeing more and more work put out by us, 2 articles a week, back to back, or we're back to 2 episodes a week, plus all the reels and the extra content we're releasing. It's all because we want to keep growing and improving the show into bigger and better things. The bigger we grow, the more things and the ideas that we have that we want to release for all of you. So truly, for the bottom of our hearts, thank you for the support. It means more than you will ever know, whether it's just on social media, a download, a listen, telling a friend, a comment, no matter how small it might be. The fact that you took time away from your own life for anything related to this podcast is incredible to us. Why anyone wants to listen to me, I'll still never understand, but I really am grateful for it. Who would have thought this silly little idea to talk Buffalo sports would turn into what it has been? And we are still 2, almost 3 years into this thing and just getting started. 2024 bringing in new ideas and new adventures, and we can't wait to share them all with you as we enter year 3. Phil, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to everybody a part of the BSC family.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. Like you said, can't thank everybody enough for listening to us and enjoying the content we produce. We really started this originally to get more content out there, mainly about the Bandits, but about everything in general, and having people kind of care about the content that we're releasing for a team that we know they are very passionate about has been really great and feels really good. And I have forgotten, I don't know how many times this day that it's New Year's Eve. I don't know where you're at with New Year's Eve as far as a holiday, a thing, an event. I think when I was younger, I cared a little bit, but even then, you're literally just watching the time go. I know it's symbolic to a lot of people. Like you just mentioned, we're doing our own wrap-up of 2023, heading into 2024, so I get the symbolism behind the new year, and it is exciting, but as far as watching it click to a new year, I pretty past that, over it. And yeah, like you said, I have forgotten pretty much all day. I keep remembering that it's New Year's Eve, and then 10 minutes will go by, and it's just another day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time I was up at midnight, to watch that tick over. I know, what was it, a few years ago where The Office was leaving Netflix and I was trying to watch as many episodes as I could, and I think I fell asleep at like 11:30. So even that year I didn't get through it. But yeah, it's something that I celebrated when I was a younger kid. I remember my family used to host a bunch of parties, and we'd invite a bunch of people over, including producer Pat and all the families and stuff like that. And we shredded paper, so at the end we had confetti everywhere in our basement. It took like a week to clean up, and we would still find it dangling from the ceiling or whatever, like a month or two later. But yeah, as far as this show, just the amount of things that, just think about what we've done in just the last year alone. I mean, we've been on Daily Dive and talking Buffalo multiple times, so we're getting our voices out there to different shows that, again, for some reason, want to hear us. We extended our coverage with the Buffalo Bandits with media passes. We've done weekly power rankings and the BSC picks for the NLL. The post-game Bandits articles that are entering the second year for you. The reels have really come on with the video portion of this. We had YouTube debut, and then like a couple months later, video YouTube review where you got to actually look at our faces now. We're on TikTok, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Threads. Just the last 2023 has probably been the biggest growth year for us, not even including the numbers that have grown and the downloads that have grown, and that's another bonus aspect of this. But like we said, I don't think we say it enough on here, because I don't want to say we take for granted of it, but we kind of just put that in the background. But any type of response to anything that we put out, it's really overwhelming, the amount of people that actually listen to us just talk Buffalo sports. It's kind of mind-blowing to me still.
Yeah, whenever we get a few likes, a few comments, a few shares, we are honestly thrilled, and we do not take it for granted when we are kind of looking at that stuff on a daily basis, kind of looking at the content we post. And like I just said, just if we get even one comment on something that we get to respond to, some kind of interaction with a fan, or just a few likes or a single share, like, we value every single little aspect of it. We are still pretty small, but we are growing. So, seeing the growth is great, but we still value every single little aspect of the interaction we get with our fans and the listeners. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty great. And it's been a real fun, whatever we said, we're on 4 calendar years and almost 3 seasons of this.
Yeah, but you can ask Phil for sure. What you're seeing on this podcast is what you're going to get in real life. So whether you recognize us and want to stop us and just say hi, that's perfectly fine. I'm an idiot in real life too. So whether I'm talking Buffalo sports or anything else, I'm the still idiot guy that's talking on that. This isn't an act. What you're getting on this show is what I am in real life. But yeah, really just thank you. We're on to bigger and better things. We're not forgetting the past, but it's 2024, we're not big on it, like we just said, New Year's Day and all the resolutions and stuff like that, but we got some big stuff planned for 2024. We said 2023 was going to be the biggest year yet. 2024 has no idea what's about to hit them from the BSC. So we will start that with the Buffalo Bandits. Our vantage point up in the press box, I love the view of it, but it didn't change the score at all. And they lost this one 9-8. Frazier, Cloutier, and Byrne scored 2 each, and then Nanticoke and Buchanan scored the other one. Vince, 33 saves, shots for 54-42 in favor of Buffalo. Faceoffs 11 to 10 in favor of Buffalo. Buffalo 3 for 4 on the power play, and the Swarm for 1 for 4. Phil, what were your thoughts on the game? Good, bad, wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I honestly thought overall it was a good game. Yeah. Oh my God, I just inhaled my water very poorly. I've been coughing over here quite a bit.
Great start to 2024.
Yeah, so now my voice is sounding weird. But as far as the game goes, I know they lost, but I thought they honestly played really, really well. This game, you want to say it's a bit of a cop-out / excuse, but this happens in sports all the time, where a goalie absolutely just steals a game for a team, and Dobson stole this game for the Swarm. I really thought the Bandits were the better team out there. I thought the offense looked fine. I mean, we'll talk about a few things that we saw that could have been better, but for the most part, they were getting really great inside looks. They were getting really great opportunities. Weiss had 3 breakaways himself. They didn't finish a single one of them, but they had a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances. What was it, 54 shots you just said? So
Yep.
It wasn't for a lack of effort. It wasn't for, the offense playing bad, the defense playing bad, Vince playing bad. Honestly, it was a really solid team effort, and I thought they played really well, but you just ran into a stonewall and incredibly hot goalie in Dobson. He played out of his mind in this game, making just big save after big save. Absolutely kept the Swarm in it, kept them alive, and I think he was, I mean, I really don't want to take away a ton from the Swarm because they still had a good game, but I think Dobson was the reason they were able to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, Dobson was the best player on the field that night. No, hands down. I don't really think there was a close second. I mean, Vince had a very, very good, more than 3/4, like 8/10, 9/10 of a game. I thought the last two that went in by him were kind of softer, but he let in 9 goals. You're supposed to win games when you let 10 or fewer in, when you have the offense that the Buffalo Bandits do. But yeah, it was a game. He had a Dominic Hasek type game where he just absolutely stole it for Georgia. And like you mentioned, Buffalo was getting into those nitty-gritty areas. We said on the show on Friday you needed to get out in front of Brett Dobson. You needed to get to those dirty areas. Buffalo was doing just that. I don't know how many posts they hit. I don't know how many unbelievable saves Dobson had to make. But yeah, sure, there were a few shots that went right into Dobson's chest that made it easy for him. But even down to the final second, Ian McKay winning those faceoffs. When we say faceoffs don't matter until they do, that final faceoff to get possession of the ball, to get that opportunity, that's when faceoffs matter. And Ian McKay came up with a huge faceoff for not a faceoff guy who's took over. And in the press conference that we attended, he was talking about, like, Max Adler's helped me and giving some clues. And early on in the game, I was feeling good about going against Thompson, and he won that one clean. And he got the possession, and they got it right down to it. Even that play design to get Nanticoke that goal, to get it down to 1, it was unbelievable. They deserve to win. And everything I was looking at, even up in the box just talking to you, I'm just going, I don't know how this game is so close. Buffalo felt like they were absolutely dominating this game in every aspect, but Dobson was just stealing them the game. And that's, again, no excuse. They should have, came out of this one with a victory. But when you run into a goalie that great and having that good of a night, you just kind of throw up your hands and just go, I don't know what else you could be doing, because they were getting into the areas they needed to get into.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought the defense and Vince, like you just mentioned, looked really good. I mean,
yeah,
Georgia's been a little bit hot and cold through their 3 games. And again, we mentioned a ton early in the year. It's going to be a tough sample size, but rolling from their offense of last year and even this year, they put up 15 and 16 goals in 2 of their 3 games. So they have an incredible offense, and they were able to find ways in the fourth quarter to make it work. And some of it was side-to-side movements, a few, like you mentioned, Vince should have had that we both kind of agreed. But for the most part, the Bandits defense played really well, and Vince honestly had a few huge saves throughout the game. So I thought he played really well as well. And honestly, just, again, holding that team to only 9 goals. I know they held the Bandits to only 8, but even still, like, holding that offense, they're quite lethal, and they've been really coming on strong as of the second half of last year into this year. So holding them to under 10 was really good by Vince and the defense. And then again, like you said, the offense was doing everything pretty much possible, even down to that very last shot where I thought it was a very good setup play where Smith had it at the top. You fired over to Byrne, who they expect to shoot. He whips it over to Buchanan for a quick stick, getting the goalie moving side to side, and Dobson was right there with no problem, had it shut down. But the play design I thought was great. I thought that's exactly what you want to draw up, and they did it pretty perfectly. But Dobson was there like he was the entire game and was just lethal. But another positive, I really don't have a lot of negatives for this game because, again, I thought they played very well. Yes, they lost, but I thought overall the team looked good. But another positive for this one was the penalty kill, holding the Swarm to only 1 goal on 4 attempts. And I thought their style again this year, they seem to be sticking with the 2 guys in front, 2 guys up top, and it seems to be working really well. And even for them to be able to kill a 5-on-3 in the big moment that it was in the third quarter, it went from a 5-on-3 to a 5-on-4. They were able to kill off both of it in a really big part in the game. And I thought it's never easy killing a 5-on-3 in the NLL. I mean, from what we've seen, I feel like those are almost automatic a lot of the times, but they were able to kill that off really well, and then again kill off the remaining 5-on-4 in such a crucial part. So I thought the penalty kill and the power play going 3 of 4, the special teams in general looked really good.
Yeah, that's the last thing I was going to bring up was I went back and forth with Adam Levy, I apologize, on Friday, I think it was, just talking about like the injuries that are on the back end and how you're relying on, Cam Wires to play a different role on the penalty kill in his rookie year. You had Steve Priolo, who's usually one of those top two guys, is one of the two guys right in front of Matt Vince. So everybody's playing a different role because the guys that used to be in front of the goalie in Bomberry and Sweeting, they're out. So new guys are going to have to step up, and you're seeing that. And I thought the penalty kill was great. I think you hit the nail on the head with the 5-on-3. Killing that off was massive in that third quarter. I believe it was the third quarter. I thought that was big. But to go back to the bad now, like you said, there's not a ton of bad. They're sitting at 1-2, not ideal. Even when Johnny T was walking out, he goes, dug ourselves a little bit of a hole here, which, they did. They did. But we said right from the get-go, and I put it in my article on last Thursday, if you want to read it, buffalosportscollective.com, but that if they get the goaltending and the defense for Georgia, this could be a title-winning team with the offense they have and the capabilities and the potential that Brett Dobson showed. You saw that on Friday night. I mean, take off your biased hat as a Buffalo Bandits fan and just watch this. This was a great lacrosse game. Yes, we want to see more goals scored, like, a 13-14 game type of that. But a 9-8 game in this type of environment, I loved it. It was such a good game, whether you're rooting for the team or not. If you just take off that biased hat and just look at it, I loved it. But just a couple things. They were mostly on the forward group. I think Dane Smith has to be a little bit more selfish and a little bit, look for his own shots. He still had 9 shots in this one, I believe. But there was one time where I think it was in the second quarter where he had the ball right in front of the net. Instead of taking an opportunity to deke the goalie, he tried to make that one extra pass. I think there's times where he's just a little bit too unselfish, being that playmaker on the forward group. I think he just needs to be a little bit more selfish. I mean, he's got 20 points on the season, but 1 goal. That shows how good of a facilitator he is. I just wish he would be a little bit more selfish and look a little bit more towards his own number and try to score. And then the other one, I think I mentioned it midway through the third or going into the third quarter. I would have liked them to give Brandon Robinson a few, not a ton, just a few forward shifts, because it felt like Cloutier and Byrne just couldn't get any lane set because the other forward for the lefties was Emerson Clark, which I didn't think had a bad game, but he's not that bruiser that can set those lanes to get Kluch and Byrne open. And it seemed like they were getting frustrated. And yes, they both had 2 goals, but it felt like there was a lot of missed opportunities where they were even throwing out Ian McKay. In that situation, why wouldn't you put Brandon Robinson there instead of Ian McKay? He's a true forward who's playing defense, which, again, I love that role for Brandon Robinson right now. But when Brad McCauley wasn't playing and I saw Emerson Clark in the lineup, I went, okay, we'll see how this goes. I just wish they would have given more forward shifts to Brandon Robinson in this one so he could be that bruiser and try to set more lanes, because they were getting in front of the net. They just weren't scoring. I just wish they would have put Robinson out for a few shifts, not every shift, just a few shifts to try to get some lanes open for those 2 lethal shooters in Byrne and Cloutier.
Yeah, I liked the idea in the second half of, in general, trying to mix up the lefties with McKay up there, but yeah, I think the idea that Robinson should have been the guy up there over McKay, I agree with, because while McKay's great, he's, again, more of what they already had on that left side. He's a great forward. He's a little bit more of a bruiser than the other guys that are out there, he's also a very good defensive player, so he's a little bit more of that pick setter, but not quite the way Brandon Robinson is. And I do think that Robinson, like you said, a few shifts here and there in the second half would have been good to see if he can open some lanes for Cloutier and Byrne, because they were getting pretty much shut down on that left side. I mean, the 2 that Cloutier had, one was on the power play, one was really far out at the end of a shot clock. It was just a great shot, and Byrne had that ridiculous snipe and then another good one. So they had a few opportunities, but not the opportunities that they're used to. I mean, Byrne had a few great diving opportunities and looks, but Dobson was just right there. But I think if Robinson would have been able to get them, like, Byrne's very good at those far out shots as well, and if he was able to get him just a little bit closer or a little bit better look by, setting a pick for 2 of the players and giving Byrne a little bit more of a screen shot, but still a good look for him to shoot at the net, I think it would have possibly been the difference in this game. So interesting to see McKay up there in the second half over Brandon Robinson, and that's, again, nothing against McKay. I like the switching it up in the second half in general, but I think Robinson would have been the better switch over McKay, just given what Robinson's able to bring and how the Georgia defense was playing the Bandits offense on that left side.
Yeah, the only other thing I have, and for those of you that have been listening to the show for almost 3 years now, you know that I am not one to talk about the refs almost ever. My biggest thing for the refs is as long as you're consistent, either be consistently good or be consistently bad. When Nanticoke got cross-checked in the head, there was a lot of people that were like, this should have been a 5-minute. I could see the point. It could have been a 5-minute, but they gave him a 2-minute. They called it. The issue I had was later in the game, Emerson Clark got called for a 5-minute. It got reviewed and reduced down to a 2. If you're going to call the 5 minutes on Emerson Clark to review it, the hit on Nanticoke should have been a 5 and reviewed it. That's my biggest issue, is it wasn't consistent. There were 2 hits to the head, same kind of situation. You saw Emerson Clark, he hit the chest first and then it went up to the head, but they called it a 5 and then reviewed it. That is a new rule this season in the NLL. I don't know why Nanticoke's wasn't called a 5-minute major and then reviewed. That's my biggest thing, because if they would have called Emerson Clark's a 2-minute from the start, I would have been okay, they're being consistent. But the issue was Nanticoke's that he got hit in the head was a 2, and they gave Clark a 5-minute major. Yes, it did get reduced down to a 2, which I'm glad that rule is in place now, but it's just more consistency. That was the only gripe I have about the refs in this game. It was a bit too inconsistent in that play right there, where if you're going to call 5 minutes for one guy, it should have been 5 for the other.
Yeah, especially with the rule change, again, like we kind of mentioned it while we were watching the game, that I understand the NLL likely doesn't want a ton of reviews, so they're not going to overcall the 5-minute. But I think anytime with the new rule change and it being reviewed, which I do agree with, I love it. A lot of times players will embellish a close to the head hit to try to get that 5-minute, which, I mean, if I was a player, sure, go for it. It's a good play. If you can get 5 minutes for your team, get 5 minutes for your team. But the fact that they're reviewing it now, I think, is great. But I think if it's even close, they should try to call it more often than not a 5-minute and then go take a quick look at it. I know those reviews have to be quick, so hopefully they are, because, again, you don't want to slow down a game with a ton of reviews on penalties. But I think if it's anywhere close where the refs on the field think it could have been a straight shot to the head, give them a 5, go review it, and then see what it actually was. Because, like you said, Nanticoke's out of the 2 was much more deliberate straight to the face and likely should have been a 5-minute, and it was only called a 2. And then Emerson Clark's was not straight to the head, called a 5 and reduced to a 2, which, again, you and I both agree with. And I think that's the loudest I've ever heard Bandit land getting a penalty called against them. I know it was 5 reduced to a 2, but never heard them cheer for a 2-minute penalty before against the Bandits. But like you said, I think in general, I think the league should try to shift more towards calling those 5-minute majors and then going to try to quickly have a review process for it and then reduce it or keep it, depending on what you think. But that was pretty much all I had for that one as well. But just like you said, consistency between it. But I think the league in general should lean toward calling those majors and then getting them reviewed.
Yeah, especially anything hits towards the head. If you're trying to get concussions out of the game, and I think
the
that's
one
a
in
big
Nanticoke
reason.
was nasty.
Right.
It was straight to the head, pretty bad shot. And I know sometimes, like we said, they get embellished. I mean, I don't know who Clark ended up hitting, but that one, he clearly whipped his head back on purpose, trying to get a good call. He got the call, but Nanticoke's was directly cross-checked to the face and only got a 2. So I don't know. I think they have to call that at a 5 and then go review it and see what actually happened.
Right. You never want it to slow down the pace of the game, but to take that out of the game, I think you got to start erring on the side of caution and call that 5. And then, if you can reduce it, you can reduce it. That's why they put the rule in place. So that was my only gripe. Not that big of a deal. It didn't play it didn't have any difference in the outcome of the game.
In theory, it could have if Nanticoke's was called a 5, but in general, Dobson was the difference in this game.
Dobson was the difference in
I don't
this
think
game,
it was that one call that really would have changed it.
Yeah. But I think it was if you had a different goalie for Georgia, that probably would have been the difference. That would have been the only change that probably would have changed the outcome.
Drafted him when he was available.
But. Yeah, Phil wanted him real bad. I don't think he had. I don't think the Bandits had the chance to get him. I'm not positive. I would have to look back. I don't think they did because Bandits were in the finals, and I think he went 11th maybe 2 years ago. We'll have to double check that. Yeah. Some milestones did happen in this game. Big big ones. Dane Smith is now in 10th place in NLL history in assists. He passed Gavin Prout for 10th place. Unbelievable. Congratulations to him. I think there's a distance now between 10th and 9th, but that will be on the Friday show if he's anywhere close to that. Matt Vince did pass Steve Dietrich for second place in saves in Buffalo Bandits history. Josh Byrne, he did pass Micah Kersey for fourth place in Buffalo Bandits history in points. Nick Weiss is at 200 penalty minutes in his career. Josh Byrne passed 600 career shots. Nick Weiss is in sole possession of ninth place in games played for the Buffalo Bandits. And Chase Frazier, he did pass, or he does have now sole possession of 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history in goals. And Pat was listening to this episode on Friday. He thought I read these too quickly. So every time I'm going to remind everybody that all of these milestones are posted on our X account at Buffalo Sports Co. before each game, so you can track them as you watch. So whether I'm reading it super, super quick, which I thought was a fun niche role of this, which I'm going to continue, you can follow us on, like I said, X at Buffalo Sports Co. to check out all the possible milestones if you do miss one. But if you focus and know it's coming that I'm reading quickly, it's a lot easier to understand.
And it's a good time for all.
It is. It's a lot quicker than Phil having to sit through 3 minutes of action. But we'll go over lacrosse look around right now. There was, like we said, 7 games in action. There's one tonight on Sunday night between Saskatchewan and Albany that hasn't taken place yet. But here's the results of the ones that took place. Philly took down Halifax in overtime, 16-15. Unbelievable game there. Rochester did lose to San Diego. San Diego took this one 17-14. And then on Saturday, we had a few games. Toronto took down New York 14-8. Calgary got their first win of the season, 17-11 over Las Vegas. And Colorado also got their first win in an unbelievable Saturday night game. They won 12-11 in overtime.
Honestly, for the most part, this entire week seems to be highlighted by goaltenders, whether good or bad throughout the entire league. I mean, that Philly-Halifax game, I know 15 goals is a lot, but for Higgins to come up with 53 saves compared to Hill's just 31, I mean, 20-plus more saves pretty much kept Philly in the game long enough to get the win. And then Rochester-San Diego, Hutchcraft in his first true start, he did not come up like we thought he would, allowing 17 goals, so that doesn't look great. Toronto, New York, that's pretty typical. But then Calgary and Las Vegas, Cal's got pulled, who we thought started the season pretty well. Del Bianco did what he does. And then Vancouver, Colorado, again, Ward also getting pulled pretty early, and they had a massive obligation to him for the next 5 years. And he has started his first 2 games a little shaky for sure. Started last season pretty shaky, but then came on strong in the second half. So I highly doubt they go away from him in general. I think it's going to be a year-long thing. Maybe it's just taking him a little bit of time to get back into it. But very interesting throughout the entire league as far as goalies' performances, whether Dobson and Higgins keeping their teams in it or Kells and Ward getting pulled pretty early. Just a interesting week for the goalies across the league.
Yeah, Philly was a interesting win here. We all had on this show had Halifax winning this one, and they probably should have. The Philly was down 3-1 after 1. They were down 10-6 after 2 and 15-13 with 4 minutes to go. The biggest thing in this one, besides the Higgins, like you mentioned, with the 53 saves, they got secondary scoring. I mean, Jones and Rezateris, they each got Jones got 4, 4, and 8. Rezateris 6 assists, 7 points. But the secondary scoring of Leclerc and Catoni. Leclerc had 2, 2, and 4, and the Catoni 1, 4, and 5. That was the biggest thing that I mentioned was they need, after coming out of their break for them, they needed secondary scoring besides just Rezateris and Jones, and they got that in this one. San Diego, we all had them winning this one. You know, Rochester losing Hartley possibly for the season with his concussion issues in the past, but their offense just lit it up for the first time this year. You know, they had 12 in Colorado, I believe it was, and then 9 versus Buffalo, so putting up 17. It's a pretty big score. Dobie 8 points, Stotts 8 points, Leclerc 7 points, Berg 9 points. You know, they did a very good job on Fields, only allowing 5 points in that one. New York and Toronto. New York is gross, Phil. They're real gross. They had 1 goal in the first half. It was 6-1 at half for Toronto. You know, Matthews had a quiet game, 3 assists, but you know, Toronto didn't really need him. And then Calgary, kind of what we expected versus Las Vegas. You know, they got some good goal scoring with King having 3, 6, and 9. Dixon had 4, and like you mentioned, Kell's getting pulled. But the Vancouver-Colorado game, holy cow, if you want to if you're confused on what happened, it was 11-5 at halftime for Vancouver. They wouldn't score another goal, and they played over 30 minutes because this one went into overtime. Yes, Ward got pulled. Carlson made 27 saves. Unbelievable in this one. The effort to come back, Colorado pulling this one out. I was looking at the score. I'm like, oh, my God. Colorado's going to fall to 0-3. My pick for Colorado once again is going to fall short. The epic comeback for them to take it, scoring 7 straight to win it in overtime. Just an unbelievable matchup for Colorado to avoid that 0-3 start.
Do you think Teat might be available to the Bandits anytime soon?
So I know there's somebody on Twitter put that out and put out the poll to see what it would take for Jeff Teat to leave New York.
Oh, my God.
He just signed a 2-year deal.
I mean, for him, not much, but what's New York going to get?
What does New York
You got to
need?
give them everything.
I don't think I get Teat's appeal, but I just, with the amount of talent Buffalo has, I don't think Buffalo would be after him. They do have New York's first round pick this year, so go ahead and keep losing New York. But he seems more like a guy that, would he fit in Rochester? Would he fit in Albany type of thing? Albany's got a bunch of young pieces that New York might be after, and putting Teat in Albany, that would put them on the map. But I don't see why New York would trade him unless Teat goes into the office and says, back. Yeah, you guys stink. I want to be moved. But not a good start. His best game of the year so far through 3 games, 6 points. But it's an ugly one so far, Phil, for your pick. You got New York this year. You got New York. It wasn't me.
That was the other thing I was going to bring up. My bold predictions are getting demolished.
Mine too.
So far early in the year. I mean, I had the Bandits scoring 14+ goals a game. That's getting crushed. I had them with only 3 losses. They already have 2.
You had Damoud possibly goalie of the year, though, and he's looked good.
I don't know. I know it's early. Well, I mean, Dobson also. I don't want to really throw that out there because it'd be depressing. Right. But he's also looking goalie of the year worthy pretty early, as is Toronto and Nick Rose. But, yeah, our bold predictions, mainly mine, are getting really, really taking a beating pretty early on in the season.
New year, new start. Let's see what happens. But
new bold predictions, three games in.
But Albany and Saskatchewan, they're playing Sunday night. We don't have those scores yet, but for everybody that was yelling at me for Albany being 8th, let's go Saskatchewan. Let's go, buddy. But we'll move on to the Bills here. They took care of business in what might have been one of the ugliest performances by Josh Allen I've ever seen in my entire life. They won 27-21 versus the Patriots. They moved to 10-6. The 4:00 games are still going on, so the Bills, according to right now at 6:34 on the 31st of December, Sunday, they have not clinched playoffs yet, but next week is for the division with the Dolphins losing. We'll go over that in a minute, but Allen 15 for 30, 169 and an interception, 11 for 44 and 2 on the ground. This might have been one of the worst performances I've seen out of Josh Allen, starting 0 for 6 and what was it, 1 for 8 too. This game came down to the defense just absolutely balling out in the first half, because if they didn't do that, the Buffalo Bills probably lose this one.
Yeah, I mean, the only positive to me, other than the defense, is that this is back-to-back games now where they've looked bad, which is not good, but they've been able to win these bad games, unlike earlier in the season where they were losing these close, disgusting games. But, I mean, back-to-back games, the offense hasn't looked right. Brady came in and did a really good job when he first took over. Now we've seen back-to-back games where this offense looks not good and kind of scary as far as possibly heading into playoffs, and especially just a massive AFC East title game next week. It's going to be huge, and you're going to need to put up a lot of points, and hopefully they can rebound because the offense looked gross. Luckily, the defense looked incredible, and I think the offense had, 7 points, not off of turnovers the entire game. I mean, it's just really bad for the offense, really good by the defense with the amount of turnovers they got. The pick 6, which was probably one of the slowest developing pick 6s I've ever seen, where I thought essentially the play was over with the way the Patriots were playing. They just kind of stopped and stood around while the Bills ran it in. So that was weird, but I mean, the defense absolutely was the true winner of this game, kept them in it, and actually just allowed them to win this game. I know 21 points by the Patriots looks a little bit gross, but they were pretty much the only reason you won this game. Allen looked bad. The offense looked bad. Kincaid looked good. And that was about it. Kincaid was probably the only other bright spot as far as the offense goes. Outside of that, it was all defense, and it was a gross victory, but a victory is all they needed in the end. So just don't do it again next week, please.
Yeah, the pick six by Douglas. My dad had called me because my parents are driving down to Florida for their next 3 months of retirement time, which is good for
What are
them.
they called?
But
Snowbirds? Is that what it's called?
yeah, they're snowbirds apparently right now for
when
3 months out of the year.
You disappear during the snow times.
They do.
Fly south for the winter.
They've dealt with one snowstorm so far, and it wasn't even a bad one. It was just snow on the ground. But yeah, Douglas intercepted it, and I'm on the phone because he wants to try to get the Odyssey app to work, and it's not working, and I'm getting frustrated because I can't figure out why it's not working from here, and he's in Cincinnati driving. But Douglas got the pick, and I'm like, okay, sweet, they got another turnover, and then it's slowly developing. I'm like, holy crap, he's gonna score. But yeah, you're right. It was just one of the slowest developing
everyone
touchdowns.
Was just standing around. Even the Bills were pretty much just standing. Both teams were standing as Douglas ran through it. I was like, what is happening right now?
It was only 30-yard return too. I was like, what is going on? But that I'm gonna screw this.
Okay.
Accusation.
What is it, Phil? What are you trying
to
get at?
The trade that Brandon Beane made. I'm just gonna say that's it. I'm not even gonna try to say it. The trade that Brandon Beane made to bring in Douglas at the trade deadline. That seemed like a smaller thing, but man, has that paid off. He looks like a legit number one cornerback, and that opens the question to. I know Tre'Davious White is a big time, and this is an off-season conversation, but I'm just putting it out there now so it's on the record. This opens the conversation of, do they bring back Tre'Davious White because they're $42 million over the cap going into next year? Rasul Douglas needs another deal, I believe. I think they can pick up his option. I'm going to have to look into this, but he looks like a legit number one cornerback, and he's staying healthy, and he gets the turnovers. I mean, he's had 3 interceptions in the 8 games he's been playing with Buffalo, 3 pass defended, which one of them turned into the Oliver one-handed interception, which was unbelievable. But Douglas looks like an absolute stud on the outside. Oliver looks like the contract looks like a discount at this point because another sack and an interception. Bernard, 10 tackles, 2 sacks. But the defense was just unbelievable in this one. From being down 7-0 to start, I was packing up the Christmas tree, and Brooks goes going, oh my God. And I turn around, and they're just running it back for a touchdown. I'm like, right, this is how you lose to a team like the Patriots, is opening kickoff, return for a touchdown. Unbelievable. But I think the alarms are sounded, Phil. The alarms are going off. What the heck is going on with Stefon Diggs? My hand was over the button. I had the flag ready. The alarms are going off. This was a game that I said on Friday that they needed to get Stefon Diggs going. He responded with 4 for 26. What is going on with this passing offense for Stefon Diggs? I don't know if it's Stefon Diggs. I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know what's going on. And the offensive line didn't help Josh Allen whatsoever to start this game. But I don't get it. I don't understand how your number one piece to this offense just is almost non-existent. And yes, they're still winning, but you need Stefon Diggs to, 1, win next week in Miami, and 2, get the end goal that you want as a Super Bowl. It's just my alarms and every worry that I have for Stefon Diggs right now is going off.
Especially when, for a little bit there, they were able to ride Cook, and even he's been back to planet Earth on the last 2 weeks. I mean, 16-48, like you just mentioned, the offensive line struggled a little bit in this game. Only 1 sack allowed, but even still, I mean, Cook just didn't have a great game this game. He didn't have a great game last game. He's getting the opportunities as far as, rushes go, 16 carries. I think last week was 20 carries again, but he's just not having the explosive plays that he did in that massive game and even a couple weeks before that. So when he's struggling and your run game is back to struggling, then you're really looking for a player like Diggs to step up, and for him to step up with 4 of 7 targets for 26 yards is not the way to step up. I mean, Kincaid, that's how you step up. He looked really good in this game and finally got him back involved the way he should be. But outside of that, I mean, it's not good for Diggs. And like you said, it's something that we've been watching for a while now. I'm sure everyone in Buffalo has been keeping an eye on it with his lack of 100-yard games, but he's had just nothing really go his way. I mean, the fact that they had to give him a rushing attempt to get him 5 yards, and I mean, there was an okay rushing play down by the goal line, the red zone area, and it looked decent, but the fact that they have to kind of resort to that to get him involved, what is going on with Diggs? I just don't get it. I mean, 4 of 26, that should be one catch for him is sometimes 26 yards, not 4 catches for 26. And even just to have only 4 catches, it's very alarming. This offense is scarier than they should be. I know the Patriots often have a good defense. They're trying to beat the Bills in this game just to kind of throw a wrench in their plans and not lose 12 games in their season for the first time. And I think it was 31 years or something ridiculous. But even still, offense looks scary for the last 2 games, and luckily they've been able to pull it out. Luckily the defense has still looked incredible despite playing with all of these kind of backup fill-in players that are really stepping into their own. Like you mentioned, Bernard, Oliver, Douglas. I know Oliver's a true starter, but Bernard and Douglas have really stepped into their own since being acquired. Bernard just being able to be thrust into that role, and the way he's performing has been incredible. But I don't know, as far as Douglas goes, as far as next year, I mean, I feel like at this point you might be able to get White on a discount because of his injury history. So if they can bring him back on a discounted salary because of his last 2 years, I mean, I don't know how many more teams are going to really offer him something massive based on his history.
Well, he's still under contract. It's just,
you're just saying bring him back in general.
Yeah, they're gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at his cap number and if it's even feasible. But I mean, I'd rather have at the moment. And this is, again, no shot at Trey White, but Douglas looks like a stud there that has 2 healthy knees, where White has been hurt the past 2 years. And again, no fault of his own. Those injuries are just freak injuries that happen. But Douglas looks like the real legit deal for the discount that they got him at. And it kind of opens the door to, can you save money by releasing or cutting Tre'Davious White and possibly bringing him back on a discount? But it opens the door for what do you do at cornerback next year? Because I like Benford out there as well as a number 2, and you got Elam trying to figure out what he's going to become if he's a number 3 or whatever. But I mean, at the moment, and I know this might be recency bias, but I prefer Douglas over White right now.
Yeah, White is not really showing his contract that I can find because he's on injured reserve, so that's where they moved him at overthecap.com. But his cap number on injured reserve is 16.2, so pretty high in general. That's it would be, I don't know, second or something. It'd be, I think, possibly second on the team for cap space. So a big number, a very, very big cap hit if he comes back next year.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now.
There it is. Next year's cap number is 16.6.
And dead cap is 10, so they would save $6 million by cutting him next year.
Again, future conversation, but
yes,
possibly a conversation. And realistically, like you just said, we both love what Trey White brings, love everything he's done for Buffalo, but just potentially a very ugly, unfortunate conversation for the business side of football, because we would love to have him back, but that number is big for a team that, like you just said, is going to be very in the red next year as far as cap space. But
yeah,
that's
going to be 29 going into that year. But yeah, next year is the first opening, because if they would have cut him this year, it's $10 over for him not to play, and obviously you wouldn't cut him then. But yeah, $6 on the cap next year where they're over the cap. It'll be interesting to see how that develops and if he's even back next year. So, I mean, health-wise, right. I mean. But yeah, it's Bills are lucky to walk out of this one with a victory. But Phil, I'm going to put this on the record. I don't think Matt Smiley, the special teams coordinator, is going to be back next year. I think they're going to keep him through the rest of the season because you can't really fire him week 18 going into the playoffs. But, man, has his special teams been just dog doo-doo this year. That opening kick, what is going on? I mean, I thought this was Sam Martin's best game punting, but there's been a lot of times where he just boots it as far as he can and the coverage can't get down there, or it's just a sloppy punt, or the special teams big return. And again, Phil, we put out the reel. Guess what? They punted it down. They ran it back to the 25. Holding call. Stop running the ball out. I don't get it. I don't get it. But Phil, that's about all I got for this game. I don't know if you have anything else to add or if you want to look at the playoff outlook.
Playoff outlook sounds great. Ugly win. Start getting some prettier victories. We'll take the victories because losses are worse, but start making them a little less terrifying against inferior competition.
Okay, we'll look around the league right now. Cleveland, they won on Thursday night, 37-20. You're thinking, oh, why are you talking about this? We haven't talked about it yet. So they clinched the playoffs. They're locked into the 5th seed, I believe. Raiders and the Colts. Raiders needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. That didn't work. Colts won 23-20. They have the last wild card spot currently. I believe that's going to come down to Colts versus Texans next week with a few other teams trying to fight for it. Jaguars shut out the Panthers 26-0. So they are looking to clinch the AFC South, I believe, next week as well. Dolphins lose to the Ravens in an utterly disappointing and gross game by the Dolphins, 56-19. I love that Ravens scored that extra penalty or touchdown right at the end there to put it up 56 points. I love just when you're up and the other team can't stop you, just keep pouring it on. It's their job to score.
The Bills need to learn that.
Yeah. Texans took down the Titans 26-3. And the Steelers currently are up on the Seahawks 30-20, and the Chiefs are currently up on the Bengals 19-17. So absolutely nothing besides the Dolphins game went the Bills' way, which is the opposite of last week. But the one game that you absolutely wanted to happen did happen with the Dolphins losing to the Ravens.
Yeah, I honestly think these 2 weeks still worked really well for the Bills because last week, like you said, you got everything you wanted except the Dolphins. This week, you got nothing you wanted except the Dolphins. So at least last week, you put yourself in a good position compared to all these teams because everything else happened correctly. And then this week, you put yourself in a good position to possibly win the AFC East in that final title game against the Dolphins. So weirdly, the 2 weeks combined worked out very well for the Bills. Not what you were really hoping for. I mean, being able to clinch this week would have been incredible, but how we're talking about this team not that long ago, this is a pretty solid scenario to be in headed into the last week, possibly with the chance to win the AFC East. So I'll take it for sure. Like you said, this week, other than the Dolphins, didn't really go their way, but I think the Dolphins was the one that you absolutely wanted to go your way. If this was going to happen this way where nothing else went your way except Dolphins, I think that's huge. And the Ravens, I know they don't get talked about very much, I don't think, because they're quietly having an incredible season, but my goodness, are they pretty terrifying. They are a really, really scary team this year. They are just blowing through really impressive competition, and they are real good. They're going to be a scary team.
Yeah, I mean, if everything works out perfect that the Bills want, they won't have to worry about them, if at all, until the AFC Championship because they clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC. But that wraps up the Bills segment. We don't know what time or what day they're even playing next week. I'm fingers crossed it's not the late Sunday game because I hate that. I'm hoping they play Saturday at 4 o'clock. I doubt that's going to happen, but we'll see what happens. It's going to
be probably featured considering it's the AFC East title game. I'm sure the NFL will be pumping that up to prime time.
See, I'm wondering that, or will it be the Colts-Texans game, the late game, because winner goes to the playoffs, loser goes home?
That's true. I feel like the rivalry between the Bills and Dolphins is a little bigger.
It could push it. I'm just hoping it doesn't. Everything in my body doesn't.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Especially with this recording. Yeah. Might have to push the recording to Monday if it's a late game. But stay tuned. We'll let you know if we have to adjust anything on the next show on Friday. So we'll head to our final segment here.
We don't have to head to this
I don't want to, but it's in our description and our job titles. We have to. Saturday versus Columbus. The Sabres won 3-2 in overtime. Quinn, Middlestad, and Skinner were the goal scorers. UPL 18 of 20 saves. Shots were 42-20 in favor of the Sabres. Yes, they shot the puck 42 times and resulted in 3 goals against a backup goaltender in Columbus. I don't care, Phil. The biggest reaction here, Granato wasn't coaching. He was out with illness. And Seth Appert, the Rochester Americans coach, came up and coached this one. That's all I really have to add to this performance besides, yay, a win. That's whoopee.
Yeah, I mean, Columbus is a better team, I think, than their record shows. If I'm giving even the slightest bit of credit to the Sabres. Columbus in the last 2 games, they did lose the Devils in overtime, who the Devils are having a decent season. They did just beat Toronto, but Toronto has a goaltending issue right now, but they did beat Toronto 6-5. So they were coming off a few decent games, and then the Sabres were able to beat them. But honestly, like you said, This game is boring. It's congrats on your win, but just not really that good. Quinn seems fun and seems like one of the few players still trying and caring and showing a little bit of flash from last season and the effort and excitement that we saw from every single player last year toward the end of the year. He seems to be carrying that over and giving his 110%. And honestly, he looks pretty good out there so far. And then the Sabres power play is giving up more goals than it scores. So that's exciting. I know the penalty technically ended, but they were on the power play, and the second it ended, Columbus had a 2-on-1 and buried it. And yeah, that's about how that goes nowadays.
Yeah, so they're playing the Senators right now as we're talking, and you're thinking, Senators not that good. You know, they're in last
Bad
place.
team.
They only have 31 games played. Yeah, but think about this. Buffalo just beat Columbus, which means they can't physically, it's in their contract, they can't win versus Ottawa because that would be a winning streak. That would be 2 in a row, and they can't do that. So, yeah, they're down 2-1 after the end of the first. The only other thing that I want to bring up with the Sabres is they finally did something right off the ice, Phil. They got rid of that stupid 3-goalie tandem that they've been working on all season long, where we said they shouldn't be doing this since last July. They waived Eric Comrie. So the 3-goalie headed monster that wasn't even a monster because it was like a little puppy dog. It's like the 3-headed dog in Harry Potter when they put it to sleep or whatever it was, where they made him go to sleep. I can't
play the harp. I think it was the harp.
That's it. You're right. It put him to sleep by playing the harp or whatever it was. But yeah, that's gone. They're playing the harp, and Eric Comrie's waived,
Fluffy.
and he's
Fluffy sleeping.
They'll see if he can get down to Rochester. But holy cow, why did it take until December 31st to do this? No hockey team in the NHL does this except for the Buffalo Sabres. So maybe, I don't know, Phil. Even with a win, I'm disappointed and mad at the team.
Yeah, honestly, I was wondering if Adams was looking at any trades for Comrie. I know he's not great, but Toronto
I'm sure he was, but who would want
struggling
Eric Comrie?
mightily right now with a goalie. So I wonder if, even if he's on the AHL, if he does pass waivers, I wonder if he's still trying to shop him a little bit. But like you said, I don't think anyone really wants him, but at least they don't have 3 goalies anymore. So yay.
Hey, Terry, but cool. If you're really worried about money, which I know you always are with the Buffalo Sabres, don't look at the Rochester Americans payroll.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
They're the most expensive AHL team in the league.
Oh, my God. Four players that were supposed to be NHL bodies, and they're down there playing. Sabres,
They're over 500, though, so there's that.
Whoopee. I don't.
Not by much. Not by much.
I dread this segment, Phil. Like, I can't get myself to care about this team until I see them perform. And you beat Columbus. Great job. It's somebody you're supposed to beat, and you had to go to overtime for it. Good job.
Yeah, right.
Round of applause. Yeah, now you're losing to a team that's even worse right now. But, Phil, anything else you want to add to this episode? Because I know we ended on a bad note, but it's New Year's Day. Thank you all. And anything else to this episode before we shut it down and get ready for a Friday show next week?
Sadly, it was a pretty gross episode all around. I mean, the Bandits did play really well, but they lost. The Bills played awful and won, and the Sabres are the Sabres. So I think we just close it out and hope that 2024 is a much better start for the Bandits, that the Bills win and continue to win, and the Sabres do more than just exist.
I concur with everything you said. So next show, we'll preview the Bills versus Colorado. First time Colorado is going to be back
Bandits.
in KeyBank Center.
Oh, you were so close, PK.
Yeah.
So close.
What'd I do?
You said the Bills.
Oh, sorry. First, I'm
if
starting.
the Bills play Colorado, that's going to be an interesting game.
That would be a very interesting matchup. But yeah, Bandits take on Colorado. First time Colorado is back in KeyBank Center since the Game 3 loss last year, where Buffalo ended up raising the championship and the trophy. So that's going to be a big matchup there. You don't want to fall to 1-3. Push Colorado to 1-3 and get back to 200. Buffalo will be facing Miami for the division. We'll talk about that game and when that game actually takes place on Friday. And then the Sabres got one game we'll talk about because their next game after this one is a Thursday. I don't know why they keep playing on Thursdays and Sundays. Don't they know we record these times? But really, thank you all again for another great 2023. We're looking forward to everything that we're going to put out there for 2024. And stay with us because we're going to keep growing and keep pumping out content as long as you guys and girls keep following and for some reason keep listening to us. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to I apologize. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where you can check out Phil's article tomorrow. Producer Pat, he's supposed to have an article coming out on Wednesday. I reminded him, but we'll see. And then my article comes out on Thursday for the power rankings. All of those can be found at, like I said, buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, I'm butchering this one. Welcome to 2024. Right. And leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.